I'm Leslie.
And I'm Shelly.
And we're
Sisters and Ebert.
Welcome to our first official
movie
episode.
review.
Yes, here we go. We figured we'd take you back all. This is Summer of Movies approved.
It is, yes. This is a certified, authentic Summer of Movies movie.
And I think this is pretty much the one that started it all. So that's why we wanted to start it off on ours. If you watched our previous video, you'll see that I'm not dressed up today. I rarely wear a fancy top. I really like graphic t-shirts, and I try to wear an appropriate t-shirt for any day, and in our case, any movie we're discussing.
You've got plenty to choose from.
I do.
So today, our film of choice, if you've seen the shirt or if you've looked behind us, is The Blues Brothers. Perfect for us sisters.
Yes. And this was one that we really loved growing up. I mean, we weren't allowed to watch the whole thing growing up until we were summer movies. That's another thing when we do our videos. We will put a little seal up in our corner. You'll know it is the Summer of Movie approved movie. So in this case, and don't mind my notes either, where I have a whole list of them for each movie. So we wanted to regale you on a little anecdote about this particular.
Yes, you can see we have
the VHS.
And what, this came out in 1980?
The movie came out in 1980, I want to say.
Yes, I think it was released in 1980.
Yes.
So the VHS is probably from 1981-ish.
Smell that.
Oh, that takes you back.
That's classic.
That takes you back.
That really, nostalgia.
For anyone who's younger watching, this is a VHS
This is a VHS tape.
This is how we watched movies.
And believe it or not, this was state of the art when it came out. And that's kind of where we're going with this, is this was the first, my dad's always been pretty up on technology.
Yes, he always had like a nice stereo, big TV.
Yeah, big TV. Home entertainment was a big deal.
Yeah.
Maybe
speakers.
Not surround sound, but
like, he had speakers, like big speakers.
Yeah, I guess so. But they were kind of, they weren't aftermarkets or anything.
No.
A lot of times they were in the TV. But he was very, very big on home entertainment. And so he got a VHS player very early. Back then it was just a video cassette player is what you called them. Yeah, or VCR. And this was one of the first movies that was out on VHS, probably beta too. We never had a beta, but we had VHS. And when my parents they must have been newly dating.
Yeah, because they got married in 1983.
Yeah.
So this was before they were married. And this lovely little box was a gift from our mother to our father.
Yes.
And if you know how much you spend on a movie now streaming, if you're going to buy it, it's like $10.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
When you were going to purchase a movie to watch.
And if you buy a VHS now, thrift store for like $1, if that.
They'll give them away for free.
Yeah.
Because they're
they're an obsolete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This technology is non-existent.
When we were growing up, what was a VHS? Like 15 bucks,
20
bucks, maybe 25 for like a really hot new movie
that just was released.
This lovely gem.
It cost our mother,
I think, what'd she say?
Just over $100
with tax.
She paid $100 to watch Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi in this lovely film.
And I would too. I mean, they're delightful in it.
They are.
But
and Dad was very appreciative. He loved this movie.
But it's just really funny to think about what things cost. And that was early 1980s money. That wasn't even today.
Yeah, that was a
lot of money.
That was a nice gift. She was trying to impress him, I think.
That was, the gold watch equivalent of Christmas gift or whatever.
Dad didn't want a Rolex.
No.
He wanted the Blues Brothers
Absolutely.
VHS.
And he probably did, yeah. So this is we won't have a VHS for all of these, and a lot of ours were taped right off of Homebox.
Homebox, yes. When you get a free HBO weekend, Dad would call it Homebox.
Well, he called it by its formal name.
Yes,
They never got to HBO status. For him, it is always Homebox office. So they're very formal, and so a lot of our childhood movies that we discuss are going to be on either recorded or right off TV. But this one, we actually have the
official copy
of. Yeah, so it's a lovely little box we'll show.
Ooh. Ah.
This was the height of luxury. 1980.
This is the Cadillac of home viewing.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll get right into it.
Yeah, we've recently rewatched it.
Yes.
I hadn't seen it since childhood. I think you had
Really?
watched it.
I watched it a couple times.
Yeah, since we first viewed it.
We used to quote it a lot. Like Dad would quote.
Yes.
Dad quoted
Dad
it
quoted
a lot.
so then we learned to quote it too.
Because just like we have quotes that we use in our everyday life, Dad does. That's where we learn.
Yeah, that's how we all communicate.
Yes,
it's our family tool for
just
communication.
quoting, not the same movie. We'll just be quoting our own movie.
We're all in our own little world, aren't we?
It works. It works. And my apologies now if everybody hears a dog barking in the background for our videos. My doggie is a little upset that Shelly's in the house.
Sorry, Sage.
Sorry, Sage. But yeah, hopefully as the channel grows and everything like that, we'll upgrade our equipment. But right now, we're kind of working a shoestring budget. So,
yeah, so enjoy the dog.
Enjoy the dog ambiance. Yeah. She's a little wild, but she's calming down, I think, now. So I do have several pages of notes that I've taken, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to do this for each of our movies. I have a 5, almost 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. So sometimes I get writing implements knocked out of my hand. I get, interruptions for diapers and snacks and drinks. So I'm going to try to be as diligent as possible with my notes.
All my notes are right up here.
Steel trap.
Oh. No, I don't think that's the case. It's more
That's why we need my written.
Yeah, we'll see what I recall from her recollection here.
Yes. So our very first one is Blues Brothers, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
And spoiler alert for all these movies, if you haven't watched them by now, though.
Sorry. Maybe if you don't want any spoilers, don't watch. But we are going to be going through in a detailed... kind of dissection.
It's best to view these and then watch this review. So
Yeah, so if you have a good frame of reference, if you've seen the movie, you can appreciate this. If you haven't seen the movie but plan to, but don't want any spoilers, don't watch this video first. Watch the movie first and then watch it. But if you're like us and just throw chaos to the breeze, live your life. Okay. So we open up the Blues Brothers.
Opening scene.
At the prison, Joliet Prison in Illinois. I just wrote notes. And so synchronized steps between Jake, who is John Belushi's character, and the prison guards. They're walking down the hallway, and it's just a lot of walking.
It's a very long opening
It's
scene.
a very long opening scene.
I was watching it. I was watching it on my phone in my bed the other night, and I'm hitting that 30-second jump button, like trying to get to the movie. Like I'm like, okay, oh, they're still walking. Oh, okay, nope, we're gonna jump again, and it just kept going. It was like a 6-minute intro. I want to say.
I don't jump either. I want to appreciate the art, but yes. You ask me when we do Thomas Crown if I still do that, but yeah.
To be continued.
To be continued. So yeah, synchronized steps between Jake and the security guard. So I feel like they're already trying to get us into like the music mindset.
A rhythm.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a very musical movie.
Driven. Yeah. And then, so one thing that always, made me laugh, and Dad pointed it out to us, is like he steps towards the counter to get his belongings back when he goes to collect what, they were holding since he's been in prison.
Released from prison.
He's being released from prison after a 3-year, I think, stint.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
3 years.
3 years, yeah. And he was getting out early, I think, because the one guy later on asked him, weren't you in for 5? Didn't you get 5? Yeah.
Somebody said, like, good behavior or something like.
Good behavior, I think. So 3 years he gets out. Steps towards the counter. And then both the guards reach forward and just pull him back by the...
Yeah, he got too close.
Yeah, too close to the countertop. So he got pulled back right away. And that's where you first see, before you even see, I think, his face, you see his fingers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's tapping the counter, and it's Jake tattooed on his fingers. So his items that he receives back... I remember this. I didn't get it.
I did not understand it at all as a child.
Well, even a teen, and we were sheltered.
We were
really sheltered.
We were 90s children. We didn't have the internet to learn these things.
But even 90s children, we didn't really have friends that we went out and partied with either. Like,
well, we had good friends.
we had friends that were also sheltered. So
yeah, so we weren't getting in trouble, and we didn't party. We didn't
have any
know a lot of these
promiscuous
things.
activity.
The most promiscuous things were these movies.
They were.
This is where we learned things.
Yes, this is where I learned things. Yeah. And that's my parents showing me that. So, what he gets back is one Timex digital watch, broken, one unused prophylactic, and then it just cuts to Elwood pulling up outside in the cop car that is the Bluesmobile. And then you cut back to the scene with Jake. One soiled with a pencil. Yeah, and it's like, which I get that now, but at the time
we weren't understanding it.
No, but it's very funny that they kept that for 3 years with his personal effects. One black suit jacket, one pair black suit pants, one hat, black. One pair of sunglasses, $23.07. And then he doesn't step over the line again to retrieve his items because they already, pulled him back once. So he just instead leans forward, like,
he's
from
like
the
completely
back.
slanted.
Yeah, complete
slant.
It's John Belushi was fantastic. It was so fantastic.
But so he got back all his black clothing. So you have your black shirt.
I
had to wear
yeah.
black. I don't have fancy t-shirts.
Well, you had this shirt too, but you were much younger when you got it, and I was much larger when I got
sure mine was a youth,
Yeah.
large, so I don't think I'd be.
So we both got our shirt, and this shirt is a relic from 1999. It is January 15th, 2024 today, and I still have my summer of 1999 shirt here. So yeah.
So she's a pat rack, is what you're saying.
My nostalgia will kill me.
Yeah. The pack rat is strong in this one.
Yeah, it really is. My husband is not that way, so we married each other. Okay. So, and again, they ask him to sign for his personal effects, and he just signs an X. No signature, just X. And then I noticed right away, which I didn't really dive into this when I was younger or really more into the movie, Dan Aykroyd and John Landis both wrote the movie.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
And I knew Dan Aykroyd had a hand in it, but I didn't know John Landis did. And so we'll be doing quite a few of these, and then John Landis directed the film as well. And then the first thing that the brothers meet up outside Elwood Blues and Jake Blues, and Elwood Blues is Dan Aykroyd's character. And when they meet up, when John Belushi gets out, the brothers just hug. They don't say anything. It's it's all music. And then they just hug. And then the first thing out of his mouth when they get to the car, is, "Where's the Cadillac?" Traded it. For what? For a microphone. Okay, I could see that. And then, "Well, thank you, pal." And this made me right away flashback to Dad.
Dad says this quite often.
A lot. And that's one of his things that he says.
And I didn't pick it up then
no,
when we were kids.
Me neither.
But that's like, "Well, thank you, pal," when something doesn't go his way.
My own brother picks me up in a police car on the day I'm released, so yeah. And but so he's kind of ticked off. He's fumbling with the cigarette lighter the whole time they're driving away. The car just jumps a bridge that starts lifting up out of nowhere.
As children, we're watching like, this is a great movie.
Of course.
But looking back, it was like,
there's no way that car would jump.
Yeah, and they were just looking for something to add into this scene, I think, to make it more exciting.
And they were not, like, going fast to jump it. Like, it was just like, just boop, right over. So, jump the bridge, and then he says, "It's got a lot of pickup." And he's like, "Yeah, these are cop shocks, cop brakes, cop engine." Yeah. And then he's like, "What do you think? It's at the new Bluesmobile. Fix the cigarette lighter." So that's, because back in the day, another thing for, in cars, they had cigarette lighters. Now it's where we have our outlets to plug phones in.
Yep. Different deal.
Yeah. So with the very next scene is the penguin.
The penguin.
Yeah. We show
the nun.
The nun, yeah. We pull up outside of an orphanage. My note is worst crucifix ever going up the stairs.
It is scary. I didn't enjoy watching this.
Okay, it is like tilted downward, so Jesus is like, and he is, You know, it is very much a crucifix. It is not pretty at all. Like, it's not one that you would find on a necklace. It is one that is very much meant to scare and intimidate.
Yes.
So, the door shuts on its own. All doors in this whole scene shut on its own. So, like, it's supposed, I guess, to imply the power of the penguin, the nun, you know, yeah. And pretty much he promised to see her as soon as he got out. So, Elwood is fulfilling that. And Jake's like, so I lied. He's like, well, you can't lie to a nun, you know, so they were sitting in these little school desks. I put little desks, and she was like, "Come closer, yeah, I want to see your face." So they're like scraping up on these. A lot of physical comedy in this movie. And then the nun goes right into which I don't know how all this was going down, but the very first thing she says is, you know, the orphanage needs money. Because they're reassessed for their taxes and they owe $5,000 by like the next week or something like that. So
I remember, like, I didn't understand as children what was happening, like what they were trying to do through the whole movie. I didn't get the concept is that they're trying to raise money for the orphanage, where they grew up.
Yes, yeah, because that's where they grew up. That's where they live. They were, you know, orphans. They're not really brothers. I think they were just brothers through the orphanage.
I don't know.
Because I don't think.
Explained?
No, I don't think their last name is really Blues though. Like I think they just
that's
kind of
pretty
adopted that. But that's what they go by. So I think they just adopted that they're brothers. You know? So and so he's like, well, you need money, and he's like, oh, I can get you money. I can get you my real fund. No, I won't take your dirty money. You know, the nun's saying your sinful money, and he's like, well, I guess you're really up. Can I say it? We're trying to keep this family friendly.
I wouldn't say it.
Blank Creek.
Blank Creek. Yes. A swear in there.
Yeah, a swear. There's lots of swears in this movie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So that's why Dad showed us in pieces as kids. He wanted to show us fun little bits, but keep it clean for us.
Yeah. And the thing is to remember too, a lot of times it would be on just like regular cable TV, like your TBS's, your TNT's. So it was already pretty edited, but Dad would edit it further. So, yeah. Oh, I have my next note. Constant swearing when hit. Being, they keep being hit because they keep swearing. So she's whacking them both with this ruler, you know. And then, you know, she says, 2 thieves, filthy mouths, bad attitudes, don't come back until you redeem yourselves. You know. So, you know, they leave. And then Curtis meets them downstairs, who's Cab Calloway. I believe a blues singer.
There's a lot of big names.
A lot of big names. And I have the cameos list.
And I didn't realize.
Yeah, I did.
Until we watched
Dad kept pointing them out.
But I didn't listen because I didn't know who they were.
She was little. I mean, she was like 12. Yeah, I was listening. Oldest child, you know. Yeah. I'm going to pay attention.
You were Dad's child, too. You're taking in all these little factoids.
I am,
where I was letting them go in one ear and out the other.
And I thought that was cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's who I am as a person.
It wasn't.
No. Okay. So Curtis says, you boys have to learn you can't talk to nuns like that. So, you know, and pretty much they go down and start talking, and Curtis will also be out if they shut down the orphanage, because that's what the city, I guess, is trying, or the church isn't interested in keeping it open, because that's what they said. Well, won't the church give that money? And the church isn't interested in keeping it open. So, you know, Curtis will also be out on the street. And unlike the nun who will be sent to the monastery, he won't have really any place to go.
Which I was also confused of his role.
I think he was just like the janitor, like maintenance.
Maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
He was down in the maintenance.
He was down in the like boiler room.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's the one who taught Jake and Elwood about blues.
Right. Right.
So that's why he holds a very, you know, special place in their heart as well. And he said, you know, the Elwood, who is, you know, Dan Aykroyd's character, says, you and the penguin are the only family we've got, and you're the only one that was ever good to us. So, yeah. And I don't know if I noted it later, but Elwood also has his name tattooed on his fingers, but his doesn't go the whole way, so he's got to use 2 hands for Elwood. Okay, so our Curtis suggests that they go to church, to you know, but a separate church, like his kind of church. So they go to the Triple Rock Baptist Church, which James Brown is the preacher, and that's our first, you know, well, I guess Cab Calloway is our first cameo, like major cameo, but then James Brown is the next major cameo, and it kind of took me because, you know, it's your typical Baptist church, and it's he talks about the jingle jangle of 1,000 lost souls, and I was like, that's great.
This was one of the scenes that Dad showed us when we were little.
Yeah.
Because it was family friendly.
Dancing.
A lot of, singing, dancing.
Over the top.
And we enjoyed it.
We did.
I remember liking it. There was backflips.
This whole movie I enjoyed. This is not one that I, you know.
Yeah, we didn't have disdain towards this one. No. I do remember being a little bored.
Some scenes I remember being long. As an adult watching it, I don't feel it was that long. Some things were drawn out a little bit, but I think that's just how it was.
And I wasn't understanding the concept. No. So when there was dialogue and things, I wasn't getting it. Whereas the physical part, the music and the dance numbers and then like the physical comedy stuff, like that was interesting to a kid.
Yes.
Who didn't understand what was happening.
Yes, absolutely. So I did notice in the back, as soon as they get there, Jake's already not interested. He's got like deadpan face the whole time. And they're both still wearing like they wear their sunglasses throughout the whole movie. You don't really see their eyes. So, you know, it's just deadpan face. Nobody's looking happy. I noticed Jake checks his watch, which they said in the first scene was broken.
Yes.
Remember? So
yes,
and I didn't pick that up as a kid at all, and I laughed out loud at that the other day. So I'm like, he checks his watch. It was just when I watched it the other day, and I'm like, yeah, that's a broken watch.
All these little details. Yeah.
Our next cameo is shown to Shaka Khan is also in the scene. She's the lead singer in the choir.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't realize.
She was gorgeous too. Like, I mean, I think she was very young in her career, but yeah, she's beautiful. And Jake starts convulsing throughout the preacher's message. So like
feeling it.
Yeah, he's hit by light and the spirit. And then he just starts saying the band, you know, and
epiphany moment.
Yeah, and he starts doing backflips down the aisle.
That was hilarious.
Oh yeah, because I mean, he was just total physical. I put John Belushi's physical comedy is just on chef's kiss. And and he was like, J H tap dancing, it was, yeah.
Your dad editing this right now.
And that's what he said. That's when he starts doing the backflips and everything. That's when the idea comes to him. So I also put jumping to the ceiling with no trampoline because these guys are just doing backflips to the ceiling in this huge church. It was obviously shot in a strategic manner, but it was very interesting as a child, and it's just funny as an adult. So very good comedic gold. The next scene, we're back in the car. And Jake is inquiring to Elwood about the band, because he's like, you said you were keeping in touch with the band, and he's like, well, I got a few leads and a couple phone numbers. He's like, you said you were writing to him. You said it's like, well, didn't you hear from him at all? Well, not while I was in prison. These aren't the kind of guys that write, and he's like, well, that was your only hope. I wasn't going to take that away from you. And he's like, I took the liberty of BSing you. And he's like, not lies, just BS. Yeah, which made me laugh really hard. I was like, that's great. They're going back and forth in the car, not really paying attention. So Elwood drives through a light that had just turned red. Mm-hmm. And they start getting pulled over by police. And it's like, rollers. Oh, no. So that's when we got the classic line when the cop comes over and he's like, you ran through a red light. The light was yellow, officer. Which Mom says that a lot.
Yes. It's a common phrase in our household. Anytime that I can't think of context at this point, but
when you're driving in the car and you go through it, the light was yellow, officer.
Yeah, that's
and I still say it now. My husband and he doesn't like my driving. I don't like his. And I'll say ooh, and he's like, oh, I'm like, the light was yellow, officer.
It's funny because I don't think I realized how much we said it growing up, and I didn't know where it came from. I didn't remember that it was in the movie, so seeing it back, it was funny.
Yeah,
there was a whole bunch of little lines throughout the movie that I was like, oh, we did say that.
Yeah,
we
movie
say that. Yes.
Is huge for our family. That's what. Yeah,
probably because Mom and Dad had a connection with it.
This was probably one of their puppy love. Yeah. And that's when they talked about SCMODs, which Mom and Dad always would discuss when we were kids too. SCMODs, they probably have SCMODs. State, County, Municipal Offender Data System.
And I remember Dad saying that.
Yeah, every time.
Yes,
he would
every
he would
time.
repeat it verbatim. And then so they do have SCMODs, spoiler alert, and they said that to suspend Elwood's license because he has 56 moving violations. I saw on the computer. So they start speeding away instead of abiding with what the police are saying, and he's like, they're not going to catch us. We're on a mission from God.
Yeah,
and
that's another phrase.
Yep.
We're on a mission from God.
Yeah. So they show up at the mall, which I had seen after the fact. It's perfect 80s mall. Just
It is.
the nostalgia of it.
You don't get a good mall like that anymore. We have a local mall that's pretty good, but it's not
It's
like...
an intact Toys R Us in this.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie because they're driving through high-speed car chase. They've got dozens of police cars chasing after them, and they're just driving through the mall. Sears.
Normal conversation.
Yeah,
just like, this place, baby clothes.
Baby clothes.
This place
This place got everything.
Yeah.
And I just love the casual conversation happening as they're strolling. Like, that's the funniest part of the movie to me.
So I put out in my notes here, the outside stores were a JCPenney, and a Jewel, which Jewel Osco is the main grocery store out that way. I know that because they sponsor a lot of Chicago Bears stuff. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, so
yes, we grew up loving Chicago Bears.
So every time I get like an email from the Bears, sometimes it'll be sponsored by Jewel Osco. And then later on, you can see it in the movie. It's like a grocery store.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then there's a Toys R Us and a Walgreens, and these are the visible outside stores of this mall. And then I just put fantastic 70s Toys R Us, like stocked to the gills. With beautiful. You get a nice, I forget the cameo of the guy who's doing it, but there's the cameo is the guy who I think did the voices for several Muppets. Is the guy who said, "Do you have it in Miss Piggy?" He's holding up a Kermit frog. Yeah, I looked it up after the fact, and I do forget his name. I apologize for that. I mean,
we're all devastated.
My wealth of knowledge only goes so far. But I put some other, as they're driving through at high pace. There's a Davidson's, Disco Pants and Haircuts. That was the name of the store. Margie Bridal, Baby Clothes, and then that's when they said this place has everything. This place has got everything. New Oldsmobiles are in early this year.
Yes. A car dealership in the mall was funny to me. Like,
yeah, but I mean, some did have them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and like even like King of Prussia now in the Philadelphia area, there's a Tesla store and there's a Porsche store. So yeah,
wow,
yeah. But yeah, so New Oldsmobiles in early. This was like a working car dealership. Like you could see desks for like where you get your loan approval and everything like that. So, Pure One Imports. So they go. Enter the mall through the Toys R Us, and they exit the mall through the JCPenney, and it's just car after police car crashing and
decimating this mall.
And then at the end, you just cut back to the cops who are like upside down, spinning around on the roof of their car, and the guy's like, "They broke my watch," and then so that's when they're gonna find, like, that's when he makes it his mission to find the Blues Brothers because they broke his watch.
A lot of broken watches.
Well, I think that was a common problem. They weren't as durable back then as they are now. I think you still had to wind them and stuff. So
maybe.
They weren't all digital. Maybe I don't know, but So that's that scene. It's a really fun scene. And I told Shelly before we started filming, I saw a unique piece of trivia when we were doing this, that mall was actually closed for 2 or 3 years before they filmed the movie, which to me blew my mind because like a dead mall in the 80s, that was the height of mall. Yeah. But so I don't know if there was like a structural problem or like a, anything like that. But I guess there was buzz in the neighborhood when they were doing this that they were going to, fix the mall up and redo it. And so they filmed the movie and they sued Universal Pictures because they never put it back like the way it was. Like they just destroyed the mall and never put it. But that wasn't in the contract. So I'm not sure who they favored, but it wasn't in the contract that they would keep the mall like the way they found it. But it stayed open for a while, some things I saw, and then the whole mall wasn't demolished until 2012. So it stuck around a long time after the 1980 release.
Field trip.
Yeah, the Blues Brothers. So our next scene is the apartment, Elwood's apartment, but it's a men's hotel. So Carrie Fisher, and I put peak Carrie Fisher. This, I'm sorry to Star Wars fans. I'm not huge on Star Wars. This, to me, is peak Carrie Fisher.
Which, side note, we're not big on Star Wars because of the summer of movies.
Yes. Yeah.
The viewing.
Yes.
I think that was a double feature day.
Yes. Now that you mention it, I believe it was. So, yeah. So I put peak Carrie Fisher is sitting outside with the bazooka casually in her car. Outside across the street from this men's hotel. And then she shoots the bazooka and they just hit the ground like without missing a beat.
Yeah.
And then she drives away and they just get up like nothing happened and walk inside. And I saw that her credit in the movie was Mystery Girl. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she is throughout the movie. She will be showing up with random explosives.
Again, a storyline I didn't understand at all.
So the Illinois Department of Corrections left a card at the front. Elwood asked if there's been any at the desk if there's been any phone calls for him, and there was just some guy left this, and it was the Illinois Department of Corrections. And then, did you get my cheese whiz, boy? There was just some guy like randomly. And he's credited as Cheese Whiz guy. That's it. Later on, because I watched the credits.
I'm curious.
And I thought he was like a cameo. He's not.
Maybe it was just a family friend. They wanted to sneak in there.
Yeah, so there's just some random older gentleman in the lobby.
We gotta get Grandpa a part in our movie.
Yeah. So they get up to Elwood's apartment, and it was, how often does the train go by? So often you won't even notice it.
I remember Dad pointing this out to us, like, could you imagine living next to the train?
Because it's just constant, like much like my dog barking. I get it. So they said, like, you know, Jake is worried that the police are going to find him because he just got out of prison. And he said, no, they're not going to find us. I falsified my address. And he's like, well, what'd you use? 1060 West Addison. And Jake just goes, that's Wrigley Field, you know, like he just knows where it is, you know. And, so yeah, that was the whole thing. And then Jake falls asleep in the bed, which I didn't note, but I did note that Elwood is sitting there making plain white toast on a hot plate, which will come back later.
Yes.
But so that's what he's doing. He's just making himself some plain white toast. And then Carrie Fisher is back in the morning. And then she pulls away as John Candy, who is the head of police. Like, he's like the detective, I guess.
I love John Candy so much.
A gem, yeah. As John Candy shows up with the cops, and he said, but I did like that Wrigley Field bit, you know, like so he did appreciate the falsified address. Okay, so Carrie Fisher detonates a bomb, which was in the hotel, that the police had already entered, and the whole place goes up, and then comes down, just bricks, and the boys just walk away. Like,
everybody is just unhurt, unharmed.
And then I said, like,
unfazed by this building just exploding.
Gotta go to work. That's what he said. Yeah, time to go to work. It's almost 9:00, you know. And the police also the same thing. Just brush themselves off.
Yeah, keep going.
Yep, with the bricks. So they go to the various band members' homes at this point. So they're trying to track down the rest of the band.
Get the band back together.
And the lady who answers, I guess the guy, he was boarding a room from her and said, are you the police? No, ma'am, we're musicians. You know, I put that down. And so she comes out and she said, you know, he's not living there anymore. Did he leave a forwarding address? No. And then that's when she comes out, Mr. Man, which Dad always thought that was hysterical too. I remember he would talk about that a lot. So, and I say that sometimes too. Like, I have a son, and I sometimes will be like, Mr. Man. But yeah, so that's another one that lives in my head. And she hands him a card that he left behind, and it was for Murph and the Magitones, which is the new name of the band. So Murph is the main guy, I guess, who was boarding her room. And then I did know he announces they track him down at kind of like a like an afternoon Vegas-y type of cocktail,
like a lounge
show. Yeah, lounge show. That's the word I was looking for. And he does introduce all of the other members of the band. So there's Steve the Colonel Cropper, who Dad always said looked like Mike.
He does.
He does.
Our family friend. Yeah. Mike.
Yeah. Looked a lot like this guy. He had the long hair and the beard and everything like that.
I forgot Dad pointing it out because as I was watching, I was like, he kind of looks like Mike.
Did you think it?
I
did. Okay, yeah, I just remembered it because I remember Dad pointing it out.
I didn't remember discussing it.
I put it in parentheses.
I mean, maybe deep down in the depths of my brain somewhere, that's where it came from, but.
Yeah. And then there's Donald Duck Dunn, Willie Too Big Hall, and Tom Bones Malone. So Jake, we find out here, they're talking to the band afterwards, and that he went to prison knocking over a gas station to cover the band's room service tab. Because they were like, oh, you don't have the money you owe us. You know, what are you doing back here? And, you know, he said, well, like, hey, let's...
I went to jail for you.
Yeah. So they said, well, you might get us, but you're never going to get Mr. Fabulous. He's the top maitre d' at Shea Hall. So that's who Matt Guitar Murphy or Blue Lou. Matt Guitar Murphy or Blue Lou are both working at a soul food restaurant because Matt Guitar Murphy got married. And his old lady has a soul food restaurant.
And she is the one and only
Aretha Franklin. Yeah. And so they took Blue Lou with them, though. So he's like, you'll never get, you know, these other three guys. So the next scene's at Shea Hall, which I thought that they pull up, and that's when the guy says, I thought it was 5 years. Didn't you get 5 years? You know, like he's on the phone trying to schedule a reservation, and Jake and Elwood walk in. So Elwood... was checking. I noticed he was checking the lock on the china cabinet.
Yes.
It's like trying.
This was another scene that Dad showed us when we were younger.
Oh yeah, when we were little, because
it was
because he said that he and his friend used to do the shrimp thing.
Oh.
But it wasn't shrimp. It was like pretzels or popcorn or something.
Okay.
That they were...
I just remember it being like kid friendly enough.
Yeah.
So he's trying to show us this movie.
Sneak it in. I think
Sneak
Wally wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And he's
so
like,
he
well,
would
this
show
was
us a tidbit
okay.
here and there.
Yeah.
So this was one of those that was like, this was an approved scene for us to be able to watch.
And this is where we get a beautiful Paul Rubens cameo as the waiter, which Pee-wee is we love Pee-wee in our house.
I think we'll have to do Pee-wee next.
Yes, I think so. I think so too. So yeah, I noticed that he recommended the Dom Perignon 71 with so it was a 1971 Dom Perignon, and for $120, which again 1980, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the gentleman at the next table said that they wanted to move their table because they were offensive. He was like, oh, they're offensive. They're offensive smelling.
I thought that earlier in the movie. I thought, these guys must stink. I think it was when they were at the boarding house, like trying to find, when they were talking to the Mr. Man lady.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, they probably stink.
Well, they just walked away from a building explosion.
And they just look so grungy. Like, when she asked if they were police, I was like, ooh, that was the police.
Don't forget, too, he's living in a single room with no bathroom.
Yes,
this is a shared bathroom men's hotel. Yeah, this is low income. So, yeah. And then, so they're pouring the Dom Perignon, and Elwood holds up this, like, ginormous glass, and he's like, wrong glass, sir. Yeah, just, like, fill it up anyways. And I said, that's me with a coffee mug or a water glass when we're drinking wine.
Yeah.
We're very liberal on what constitutes a wine glass in our house.
I have wine glasses, but they don't fit my dishwasher, so I don't like to use them because then I have to hand wash them. So.
And then you have to fill them up more than once, so
a coffee mug does the trick.
Yeah, pour with your heart. And get where you need to be. Yep. So I laughed about that because I'm like, well, that's me now. And then they started noticing that the next table was offended by them, so they started messing with them and said, "You're women. How much for your women? The little girl, you know." And like I remember this, and they're like throwing food into each other's mouth and catching it. And I remember Dad talking about how him and his buddy, who looked like this other band member, used to do that and catch it in each other, like in their mouths, like, you know, and that was like the grapes or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't remember this.
Yeah. And then let's see. Oh yeah, and they said to the maitre d' guy that if you say no, we'll come for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of the week. And so he came back and joined
the band. He's in.
So the next thing I put is at the Illinois Nazi rally.
Which, again, Dad showed it to us thinking it was so funny, but I didn't understand it
either. I mean, I knew World War II.
I knew what a Nazi was, but I didn't understand
why this
Illinois Nazis.
No, and why this was funny. And I didn't get it. So it's I hate Illinois Nazis. They're stopping traffic pretty much. You can't get through. So as they drive away and mess up the whole Nazi party rally, because they like just drive through and plow everybody down and say, get that car's license plate number, which I thought, okay, well, they just want to track him down, but I didn't make the connection like that was historically something they would do.
Yes.
Get that car's license plate number. You know? So I thought I made a little note of that now. The next scene's at the Soul Food Cafe. Mm-hmm. So this is where we meet Aretha Franklin, and she is Matt Guitar Murphy's wife.
Another pre-approved scene. This whole segment.
Yep, we were allowed to watch because there wasn't a lot of bad language
Yeah.
or anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
no innuendos or
no.
anything really.
And even the innuendos in this movie, I felt weren't terrible.
Yeah.
This isn't like a lot of things that we were allowed to watch early. It wasn't a lot of sexiness. It was more like language and violence were okay, but sexiness was not.
Yeah.
So, the boys enter the soul food cafe and she's taking their order, and Elwood orders a piece of white bread toasted, which is his signature. That's all he wants, dry. And she's like, "You want anything on that?" So, and then Jake orders. He's like, "You got fried chicken? Best in the state." "Okay, I'll have 4 fried chickens and a Coke." And she's like, "You want breasts or thighs?" And he's like, 4 fried chickens and a Coke. And Dad thought that was hysterical. I remember that sticking out as a kid.
Or like we'd go to a restaurant and Dad be like, "What are you gonna order?"
Yeah.
4 fried chickens and a Coke.
Yeah. And so, "Y'all want anything to drink with that?" "No. A Coke." Yeah, because he said that was part of his order. Like, it's just they're back and forth. They're going back and forth the whole time, and it's just no pauses. Like, it's just beautiful comedy. So she goes back and tells, "There's these 2 guys out front, and the one wants just a piece of white bread, dry, toasted.
Elwood.
Yeah, and the other one wants 4 fried chickens and a Coke.
Jake,
the Blues Brothers." So that's how he knows who's out front. And that's when they, she comes out and they're talking about the band and how they want him back for the band. And she's like, "You better not be leaving me to go join any band." And he's like, "Ma'am, this is a lot bigger than any domestic problems you might be experiencing." And I'm just thinking, as a wife, I would have been mad. So he's like, "Well, we're on a mission from God. Don't you blaspheme in here." And that's when they sing the classic "You Better Think" song.
Beautiful musical number.
Yeah, gorgeous. And that's when I noticed how many extras were in this movie. Because not only is it just in this small soul food cafe, there's fully packed, but outside the window, you can just see people walking around. And it's different people. It's not like the same 2 guys just walking back and forth. So many, many, many extras in this movie. And I put, Jake and Elwood start dancing to the song Deadpan. Like, this whole song is to convince McIntyre Murphy not to leave and come with them. And they start dancing along to it because it's just getting them the groove going. And I put, how could you not dance to it? So Blue Lou is on the horn, the saxophone playing. And then I put "Let's Boogie." I guess that's what they said. "Let's Boogie," they leave. Mm-hmm. And then Blue Lou's just kind of standing there, like, scared with the saxophone, like he's looking at Aretha Franklin, not knowing what to do. And she's like, "Well, go ahead,
sends him out on his way." Yeah,
and she's like a little boy. So the next scene is very quickly Carrie Fisher at Curl Up and Die, DYE, her I guess salon.
Yes.
And she's doing her nails, and then she just starts reading an M79 flamethrower manual. With I noticed this too, and I didn't notice this as a kid. So she's reading the manual with these perfectly manicured nails, and Dad thought this was the funniest name for a salon when we were kids too. Curl Up and Die. Yeah. So there are frame photos of her and Jake all over the picture.
Oh, I didn't even.
Yeah, I just zoomed in a little bit, and you can see them, it's like him helping her grandmother, and little, I paused it because I was like, "Oh, look at that."
Oh, okay, so it was a subtle.
Yeah, a subtle nod.
Yes.
So setting up a little bit, more context,
and
but still
why we didn't understand it because it was very subtle.
Yeah. It was a very short scene too. The next one is at Ray's Music Exchange, which is Ray Charles is the next cameo in it. And he fires a shot at a boy trying to steal a guitar, or something off the wall. And it's Ray Charles, so he can't see him. And the guy was completely quiet. You couldn't, he just knew the kid was in there. And it's a shame seeing boys that young, But they were talking about how Murph, he was like, "Hey, Ray, it's me, Murph, from Murph and the Magitones. Remember, I just bought some amps from you a couple weeks ago. Beautiful red shag carpeting." And it just made me laugh. And Ray's like, "I'll buy them back for $350 a piece." And he's like, "Ray, I just paid $800 each, not 6 months ago.
Yeah.
He's like, well, depreciation. He smiles. And Ray Charles is just adorable.
It's great to see his sense of humor.
Yeah.
And to be able to, like, play in.
Like, this is definitely like a used pawn type music store. It's just great. Yeah. And so then the next song happens is Shake Your Tail Feathers, because, they're trying to get a better price on the keyboard. And Ray Charles says, oh, this still has lots of life in it. Because they were trying to say, like, it's all played out. It's all worn out. It's like, so that's when he plays Shake Your Tail Feathers. And the whole outside of the shop gets involved, too. It's just really...
It's a fun scene.
I got more extras, a ton of dancers just in the street. It's so fun. And he said, all right, well, he's like, will you take it? He's like, yep. And he's like, and as usual, I will give you an IOU. He's like, naturally. So, yeah. So the next scene, I put at Howard Johnson's, and Jake is making a phone call, and it's all the money they have left is a quarter. Well, that's enough for a phone call. And I thought, back in the day, yeah. I remember even in high school, Mom tried to give me a quarter in case I need to make a phone call, and that wasn't enough. It was 35 cents at the high school. And that was a high school amount. Yeah. Well, it went up later. It was 50 later, so... And they were like, who are you going to call, Jake? Which I thought was funny, because that's what Elwood says. And I'm like, is that a Ghostbusters foreshadowing? Who are you going to call? Did you know Dan Aykroyd said that John Belushi was originally supposed to be in the Ghostbusters.
Oh.
But when he passed away, they had to recast. So that was, So I think that was kind of maybe a little nod. Because I'm sure he had more than one project.
They're working on scripts.
Yeah, because it was, 82, I think, when 84 when the Ghostbusters came out.
Still, it's probably in the works.
Oh, I'm sure the script was already, thought of and everything. Yeah. So.
Or maybe they just went back and pulled the line too. Like
I just thought it was funny. I mean, it might have been a complete coincidence, but I just thought it was funny.
It probably was.
Yeah. So Carrie Fisher again shows up with a flamethrower to the phone booth. And
from the manual.
They just get up and go. And then the Illinois Nazis are trying to find Elwood, and they show up at Wrigley Field because they find the fake. They got excited because they found his address because of the license plate number. But they all show up at Wrigley Field. So our next scene is at Bob's Country Bunker, which they said we've been in the car for 3 hours now. They were driving around. They don't have a gig, but the band thinks they have a gig. So tonight only, the good old boys, and is what the sign says. Jake says, oh, they must have screwed up the band name. So when they get in, they say, oh, we're the band. Well, Jake's doing all the talking, much like I'm doing right now. I feel like I'm sorry.
Well, you're the expert.
And the lady says, oh, we got both kinds, country and western.
Which was another key quote of our childhood. For some reason.
Yeah. So the band is questioning that there's chicken wire up in front of where the stage is, like, oh, well, what's that for, And they said, well, they got a list of songs to play, and they said, well, we'll just play the regular set. The list means nothing. There's requests, So... they start playing, the crowd is turning, and the owner, Bob, of Bob's Country Bunker is like, that ain't no Hank Williams song, so they switch to Rawhide and A. That's the only country song they know how to play at first, is Rawhide and A. So they sing Rawhide. Jake finds a whip on the side of the stage, so he starts whipping it. He ends up cracking a cigarette out of a girl's mouth, but they turn the crowd over to their side with that. And then they said the next song is a favorite of the horn section. We hope it's one of yours. Stand by your man. So it's Stand by your man. Is what they said in the thing. And I used to do that all the time. As a kid, I thought that was so funny. But so they did that, and that completely turned the crowd then back over to their favor. And then they closed with, I noticed it just cuts to later on in the night, but they closed with Rawhide again, the chorus again from Rawhide. So they're settling up with the owners, and they're like, well, you guys get $200 for the gig, and you boys drank $300 in beer. And they were like, oh, we thought it was complimentary.
So now they got to scrounge $100 when they're trying to earn $5,000.
Yeah.
Poor orphans.
Yeah. So they say, well, I'm going to go take up a collection from the band. So they get outside, and the good old, I forgot to say, when they were there, we're the good old Blues Brothers Boys band, because they were trying to still keep this con going. But they get outside, and the real good old boys show up in their RV, and they, they're going back and forth. They trick the Blues Brothers, evade the good old boys. They evade Bob and leave the bunker. Bob's chasing him out. And, well, what are you boys all dressed up for? The good old boys. We're the good old boys, So he didn't even know what band he hired. So they're in the car, and then the same cops catch them speeding.
Convenient.
Yeah, and they run into the good old boys as they try to pursue the Blues Brothers, who are also pursuing the Blues Brothers, and they crash. So they
took care of
again.
themselves. Yes.
Yeah, both problems took care of themselves.
And the Blues Brothers escape.
The next scene is with their agent at a sauna, which is funny because it's just a tight shot. It's just Jake and Elwood, like me and Shelly, are sitting here, and then like the agent's like up on the next step, like they're all in towels, just in this smoke sauna, and he's like, you know, the guy said, "You guys need $5,000. Who do you think you are, the Beatles?" And I saw this thing the other day. I was actually like an article about how Kurt Cobain was so, when he was alive, he was so aghast that Madonna was charging, I think she was charging $75 for tickets back then. And he was like for $75 for tickets, like he just thought that was ridiculous. And this was in like 93, you know, like, so I get that it would be hard to collect that kind of money.
That's a lot of
in
money.
one gig.
Right.
Yeah. Like now you wouldn't blink an eye, you'd think only $5,000 for the, you know, selling out a stadium.
Right.
But yeah, so I guess back then, you know, because I think they said that, I mean, not counting what like Ticketmaster and scalpers and stuff were upcharging, the base price of the tickets, Nirvana said, was like $22 or something like that for their tickets. So yeah, so it was just interesting to put in perspective.
Yes.
So they said that we'll fill the hall by tomorrow. He gets them this hall, and they're like, well, we'll fill it by tomorrow. He's like, you need proper exploitation for that. And Elwood says, I know all about exploitation. I've been exploited all my life. So it was funny. I laughed because we pan out of the scene then, and it looks like just the three guys are in the scene. Well, here are the other 8 members of the band are back in the corner. Just sitting
enjoying the
song. So you're like, come on guys, you know, they just leave, you know, to go exploit the concert. So then I put the next scene is spreading the word, and so Curtis gets the orphan kids involved too, and he said, your butts are in this too, you know, and they found out, did you catch where they got the giant speaker? I saw it was up, but I didn't notice what.
I do not.
They acquired a speaker. It is huge, like a stadium speaker, so like way too big for a car. But they put it on the top of the car. And then they're driving around just saying, you know, the Fabulous Blues Brothers show band and review.
In the most like boring voice. The Fabulous Blues Brothers
tonight
show
only.
and review.
Hey, you two girls.
Hey, you two girls. Like, it's so monotone, but that makes it so much better.
Yeah, it does. Free parking.
Yes.
$2 cover charge. That was it to get in. $2 cover charge. And it said ladies night tonight.
Ladies night.
So
phrase.
Then they just pull over and he's like, well, because they're gonna go get to the hall, and it's they're out of gas. So you have to pull in. I put this next scene is the Palace Hotel ballroom / gas station. So it kind of goes back and forth. And then they get to the gas station, they're pushing the car, and they said, the guy gets there, oh, out of gas. And he's like, yeah, that's why we're here. And he's like, no, we're out of gas. So the gas station was out of gas. So the truck's always late on Thursdays. And then Twiggy pulls up, our next cameo.
Yes.
And this, you know, cute little sports.
Mom loved Twiggy, didn't she?
I think she did, yeah.
I kind of feel that.
Yeah. Well, Mom said that was like the first like skinny like person. Like she made model. Skinny cool, and Mom was skinny.
Mom used to get made fun of when she was young because she was so skinny.
Yeah.
Like,
I was the opposite.
Couldn't gain weight.
But she was so skinny, so I think that's why she liked Twiggy. But so yeah, and Elwood ends up like flirting with Twiggy the whole time, and then propositions her to meet in a motel room if her date doesn't work out that night. So, and you want I should wipe the dead bugs off your windshield?
What a gentleman.
I know. So, and then they get the call. The police get one of the posters that, you know, where they're showing up for this concert tonight. And it lands on John Candy's desk. And I noted that he had a pig statue on his desk. And he's a cop. So, like, I was like, that's fantastic. So yeah, at the Palace Hotel ballroom, Curtis starts playing Minnie the Moocher with the band, which I remember being very bored during that song back in the day. Because it was long.
Yes.
And just kind of starts out slow, and it's old, you know, bluesy, jazzy.
Yes.
It wasn't my gig when I was in...
We watched a lot of Squirrels at that point.
Watched a lot of Squirrels at that point. So that was Minnie the Moocher. But I said I loved it now. And he's like scatting, and the audience is scatting back, and they're like not... A lot of Caucasians in the audience. They're not getting it. It's just really funny, you know. But yeah, it was a good song now. So when the Blues Brothers get to the hall, they see the good old boys RV is there. So Elwood takes the time to glue down the brake and the gas pedals, I guess. And it's like, strong stuff, it's like the spray glue, and he's just spraying it. And then John Canny gets there with the police, but he wants to hear him sing. I've never heard these boys sing. Yeah. So we're taking the time. We're not going to arrest them because they're not going anywhere, but we're going to hear them sing. So Jake and Elwood break in through the ladies' room window to go up to the thing. And then John Candy's sitting there with two other cops, and there's just so many cops, like armed cops throughout the entire hall.
Yeah, they're filling it.
Yeah, it's the Palace Hotel Ballroom. Yeah, is where they're at. And so they're filling it. It's huge. They got all the people to show up. But the waitress comes by, and John Candy's sitting there with the other two cops. An orange whip, 3 orange whips. It was just like the most random drink order you'd ever think of in your life. An orange whip. I have to look up and see what's in that.
I don't know.
I've never heard of it.
It sounds delicious.
It does. If it tastes like a creamsicle, I'm there.
I'm in.
Yeah.
We'll look it up and it won't be anything.
No, it'll be something gross. Yeah. So the 3 orange whips. And then when the Blues Brothers finally get out on the stage, because that's why they sang Minnie the Moocher with Curtis, is the Blues Brothers weren't there yet. They were stuck at the gas station. They were stalling the audience because it was starting to get rowdy. Because everybody was mad. Nobody was playing. So when the Blues Brothers do get on stage, they wanted to welcome all members of the Illinois law enforcement community who've chosen to be here with us tonight. And then, they start singing the song. Everybody's talking about everybody needs the same things in life. And he's like, you, me, them, the cops, everybody. Yeah. So they sing Everybody Needs Somebody to Love and Sweet Home Chicago, which are the only 2 songs they do in the scene. And then they just peace out. As they're sneaking out, there's a record exec who approaches them, who wants to give them advance to do a record and record a record with them. So $10,000 advance. And then they sneak out. They tell them to give $5,000 in tax, or with the $5,000 in taxes, and then to square up the rest with Ray's Music Exchange in the band. So that's what they did with the money. So they're in the tunnel, and then Carrie Fisher's again there. And Elwood, who is that girl? Finally asks. And Jake, just approaches her. It's like, it wasn't my fault. Because we find out here he jilted her at the altar. Her father sounds mafia. Sounds like they're connected.
But it's also how did Elwood not know about all of this? Well,
Jake, I think, was a con guy.
True.
True. So it wasn't my fault. Ran out of gas. I had a flat tire. No cab fare. Tux never came back from the cleaners. A friend was in from out of town. Car was stolen. There was an earthquake.
Just rattling this list of excuses.
Tidal flood. Locust. Whatever it wasn't my fault, I swear. And then he just removes, she's just standing there, and he just takes off his sunglasses and just...
The only time we see his eyeballs.
Just bats his little eyes at her. And that was enough to turn Carrie... Oh, Jake.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, she was fine with it. So he comes and kisses her, and then he just drops her in the mud in this tunnel. And then is like, all right, let's go.
And they just leave her there.
They just leave her there, and she doesn't do anything about it. So that's when you get the iconic line in the car, the 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark. We're wearing sunglasses.
Hit it.
There you go. You came through in clutch, Shelly. I didn't know if you know it or not.
Oh, I knew it.
Okay. So next you cut to the good old boys, and the glue takes effect, and they end up passing the Blues Brothers and the cops who are pursuing the Blues Brothers.
Because the gas is glued down.
It's glued down. So they're trying to chase the Blues Brothers, but they end up passing them because they can't get it to lift. Twiggy is waiting for Elwood at the motel. So poor Twiggy got stood up. I said so many car crashes. And up until the Blues Brothers 2000 came out, this was the movie that had the most physical car crashes in it with the record. And that movie only beat it by 1. And after that, the next ones were Fast and the Furious, things like that. But yeah, this movie used to hold the record.
It had a lot. Not just in one scene.
No,
in so many scenes.
And these were physical car crashes. I said no CGI. It's beautiful.
No wonder Dad liked this movie. It's a guy's movie.
It's a guy's movie. So there was they noted as they're driving through Chicago that the use of unnecessary violence has been approved for the police in apprehending the Blues Brothers. And then there's cars jumping other cars for no reason. I put again mission from God.
Yeah.
And they're in a 1974 black and white Dodge sedan. Mass police car crash. Illinois Nazis get involved in some, I put stupid German car. It was like some silly little something that wouldn't get any speed or anything, you know.
Put it in age.
Yeah.
It's a Simpsons reference.
Yeah, for those.
If you like Simpsons.
Yeah, are so inclined. So they flip over the Illinois Nazis again for no reason. And then the Illinois Nazis fall off. Because again, they were in a dead stop and then back up and jump over the Illinois Nazis car. And then the Illinois Nazis go off this like unfinished cliff, like that was, you know, going to be like an expressway entrance or something. And they just fall forever, and they fall through the street with a deathbed love confession. You know, I've always loved you. And I'm like, it's just so random.
Such a realistic movie.
Yeah, and like they crashed through the street, which the Blues Brothers had just went through again. So the Blues Brothers had made it all the way around and back down.
Yes.
Before they.
Yeah, things aren't adding up here.
No. So the next scene is at the Cook County Tax Assessor's office. The car collapses as soon as they step out of it. Just like
falls apart.
It's
completely.
finally done. Yeah. So I guess the cop shocks can only go so far.
They got pretty far on those.
Every time they go into a door in this, they're barricading the door, but it's like the most random stuff.
Yeah, there's like a chair or like a basket.
So the lightest things, there's a whole SWAT team and every cop in Illinois out for them. And
they're chasing after them. They just casual like a house plant.
So they take the elevator to 1102, and it's just silence and the Girl from Impanita Muzak version going up the entire time. The SWAT team arrives, and they're still in the elevator during this whole scene. There's just like the cops are all rushing around, and they're just quiet, nothing in the elevator every time. So I put that they had 2 chairs and 2 small trash cans to block the last door and 1 bench.
Yeah.
It was just like, you know, like office stuff. That's all that was there. And then they get there, and it's back, and the guy will be back in 5 minutes. There was a sign on the door. So you just hear a faint hubbub outside. The guy showed up, and here the guy is your next cameo. I don't know if you picked up on this one. Steven Spielberg.
No.
Yep, Steven Spielberg was the tax assessor.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't either. And I looked it up. I'm like, get out of town. So as he's writing the receipt out, you can hear a faint hubbub of the
impending SWAT team.
The SWAT team showing up. And then the very last scene we get to is they just show up with all these guns in the Blues Brothers face, and Steven Spielberg too, just like, they're like, what the heck did I get myself into? So they paid the orphanage taxes. They got that done. They got the receipt.
And then immediately get arrested.
So the next scene is at Joliet again. The whole band is in prison, not just the Blues Brothers. The whole band.
So it's not.
I don't know how
not
the other
quite
guys,
explained.
Yeah, but maybe because they were involved in the grift.
Implicated.
I don't.
Yeah.
But I remember Dad again pointing out Hartenstein, which
our family friend.
Oh, sorry.
Mike.
Yeah,
we didn't say it was Mike Hartenstein.
No, but I maybe I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, it was just slip. But so he was chasing with the bass, but I put that there, but it was actually in the ballroom scene.
Okay.
Because I was looking for it there, and I rewound it 3 times. I'm like, I remember Dad pointing this out, that the guy's like chasing with a bass guitar, and Dad thought that was so funny. And I think that was in the ballroom scene because it wasn't in the prison scene.
I love that you remember that. You committed that to memory. 20 years later, whatever.
At least, yeah. Yeah, probably 20. So, and then Belushi and Aykroyd are both credited for their roles. So they sing Jailhouse Rock, you know, and they're both credited for their roles as Jake and Elwood, not their actual names. So it's Jake and Elwood, and because that was their personas. This was an SNL sketch.
Yes,
yeah,
that's true.
So, so that's who they were. They never got, their real names put on there. And then the cameos were listed and the crew, and I put a note that there was less crew in the picture than there were extras.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And on the back of the wall, the prison is never too late to mend is written. But yeah, that's what I...
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was quite the
a
film.
wild ride.
I'm sorry if I bored anybody with the notes.
That was extensive. I hadn't seen all the notes.
I'm sorry.
They don't. If you've got a good imagination, you don't need to watch the movie. You
I
just lived it.
I just went through scene by scene. Hopefully, we're not at 2 hours and 12 minutes.
We might be.
rewound it a couple times there, talking about different things. So,
Yeah. How many squirrels would you give this movie? Are we going like a flat rate of squirrels, or are we just doing infinite squirrels?
Infinite Squirrels.
Infinite Squirrels,
This
okay.
was a low squirrel movie because there was jazzier scenes
for a younger kid to be involved with.
And there's good comedy too.
Yes, and
Like,
we had
even-
seen these things before too, so like we already had background
We
knowledge.
wanted to see the whole thing.
Yeah,
This was a movie we wanted
Yeah,
to
we
see.
had been teased for years.
We made the mistake of asking to watch this movie,
Oh, we did.
I think. And
We
I think
probably
that's how we got it started off with the summer of movies. Because
We
then
bought it on
after,
ourselves.
I'm starting to think, that just clicked into my brain. Because I do remember asking if we could watch it. And Dad's like, yeah, let's watch it during lunch. And I think that he enjoyed that. And then we started.
committed ourselves to an entire
Now I think this was all our
summer.
fault. Yeah.
And it went beyond summer then,
It
too.
did.
It didn't end when we went back to
No.
school. There was weekends. There's holidays.
Yeah. It was any time. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Sorry.
I blame
Jill.
you. Yeah, this was your fault.
This is my
This was definitely your fault.
How
No,
many
but
squirrels?
I give this very low squirrels. Oh, a 1-2 squirrel rating.
Uh-huh.
Just because there's a couple longer
Yeah.
scenes. Things we weren't understanding.
No, things that could have been cut out but weren't. It's a 2-hour and 12-minute movie.
Oh, yeah, that's lengthy.
It was lengthy,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I tried to watch it before my kids woke up the other day, and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be a photo finish." So, yeah. So,
Yeah, I think this
I
one was
just love-
entertaining.
I would agree. Yeah,
And-
I love this movie.
And
I've always
Dad
loved
had such a passion for it too, and so like he got us amped about
Yeah.
it. So
and it made me have a passion because I thought everybody thought things like this were really cool.
well,
I'm a niche personality.
you are. Yeah, you gotta learn to love you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Blues
I did
Brothers, and this was one that I was excited to go back and watch
Mm-hmm.
again to fully understand.
I don't plan on discussing Blues Brothers 2000, just for the record.
I never saw Blues
Me
Brothers
neither,
2000.
but
I don't.
Dad
I don't
Dad
care.
always kind of like said that, like acted like it was blasphemy. So that was kinda...
Yeah, because
So-
you don't have John Belushi. So
No.
what's the point?
Yeah.
It probably is a good movie.
It probably is. I mean, I love John
It's popular,
Goodman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know some things you should leave alone.
Yeah.
But I love this movie and I highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
It holds up today.
Yeah, and you don't have to buy it on VHS for more than $100. So.
You could probably check your thrift store. You might be able to find
Yeah, you get a good copy,
it.
just like this.
Yes.
Good luck finding something to play it on, though.
Yes,
because
those are
the
hard to come by.
VHS player is it's gone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, if you like following along with Sisters and Ebert, give us 2 thumbs up in the comment section, like, subscribe, and join us next time.
Yep, we'll make sure and hit us up with, any comments you might have.
Questions?
Yep, anything. We'll be happy to elaborate as much as possible. So.
This wasn't enough elaboration. I don't know what is.
I did a dissertation. I'm sorry. All right, but thank you so much for joining us in our inaugural movie review.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
All right, see you at the movies.